I have my special guest, redefining safe thoughts in yoga, educator, greeting, and of course, an author too, and the author of the book, Hands on Yoga sees no other than Miss Kiara Armstrong. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Kiara, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes. So I'm a yoga instructor. I'm an ERYT 500 yoga instructor and also a continuing education provider. I am a massage therapist. So here in California, the highest level of designation that you can receive is a certification, which is a clinical setting as a massage therapist, and have combined that knowledge of being a massage therapist and a yoga instructor into this methodology that I'm bringing into the yoga community on how to bring safe touch into classrooms.
Saved us indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Kiara. And today, let's talk about your book, Hands on Yoga Assis. Tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Oh, wow. What inspired me to write this book? To be honest, I guess what inspired me was COVID. I was sitting at home and I couldn't teach yoga, I couldn't do massage, I couldn't do anything. And my husband was a first responder, and so he was gone, and I was at home. And I had a friend who had said, no one else is doing this. No one is doing this type of hands-on work in yoga classes. Like, you need to bring this to the world. You need to do more with this. And she always urged me to write a book on it. And so I ended up writing 3 books on it during COVID. I basically took every assist I know and wrote them up as techniques in 3 different books.
Techniques. And thank you so much again for sharing the 3 books to us. Can you explain the core concept of the rubber band method and how the rubber band theory helps teachers understand tissue response?
Yes, thank you for that question. Um, so, when we offer touch in yoga classrooms, it's kind of, you know, there isn't as much formal training behind it that I've explored or that I've experienced, whether that's being a student or, observing other trainings. It's almost like, I like to call it the game of telephone. We experience and assist in class, or we experience touch, and then we kind of turn around and do it. Maybe we've learned a few techniques from senior teachers, and then we apply it. But there isn't a lot of training that goes into quality of touch. And in the massage world and other spheres where touch is central, there's a lot of emphasis placed on quality of touch, how to read tissues, how to listen with your hands, is what I call it, being able to interpret cues from tissues when you're touching someone as to what their safe bounds are. And so the rubber band method was created from this concept that we always need to approach a student with an attuned quality of touch. We're listening to their tissues when we stretch them, and it feels a lot like a rubber band. So when you stretch a rubber band, you start feeling, oh, I'm stretching this, and you can get to this point where it feels like the rubber band is resisting you, like it's a little too much. And surprisingly enough, that's exactly what it feels like when you're touching a human body. You'll feel that there's this stretch capacity, and then it reaches this point where it almost resists you a little bit and it starts to kind of pull back. And so rubber band method was created to identify the importance of having quality of touch, knowing what you're listening to when you're touching your students, and for listening to those safe bounds that you can very safely practice learning and listening to if you just stretch a rubber band.
Your book emphasizes distinguishing between assisting and adjusting. How does it guide teachers to understand and apply the difference?
Oh, good questions, Daniel. I love this. Thank you. That's a great question. So, in the yoga industry, we've had this kind of catch-all term for touch, like any type of touch, will refer to it as an adjustment. But if you go to the dictionary and you look up the word adjustment, it means to correct, to fix, to change. And touch is so much more complex than just changing a student's shape. I'm sure most yoga teachers, many yoga teachers, have experienced touch in a yoga classroom where their hips are being lifted up and back in downward dog, or they get a hip press in child's pose. Both of those are really common examples of not being corrected. You are not being adjusted, but you're being touched. And so why would we call that an adjustment when it's not an adjustment? It's not a correction, it's not a change. And so within rubber band method and within this methodology, it's presenting the idea that touch is a really powerful tool that is multifaceted, and it can be used in more than one way, more than just to correct. So on the one hand, there is adjustment, which is a correction. And if we're correcting someone, the goal is to essentially put them in safer alignment. If we're going to put them in safer alignment, the idea is to do that and have them learn what the safe alignment is. And the next time or in future instances that they come into that pose, that posture, they find that safe alignment again and again, right? We're not meant to be there every single time correcting them. We're meant to correct them. They learn it within their body where they're supposed to be, where that safe alignment is, and they've been adjusted or corrected. Well, if we use strong touch to correct a student, we're kind of moving them for them. We're doing the work for them rather than asking them to use their muscles, their stabilizer muscles or their larger muscles to move themselves into that safe alignment. So my suggestion is that an adjustment uses really light touch. If anything, you set a target. So for example, in Warrior 2, if someone's knee was caving in and you're concerned about knee integrity and the safety of that joint, you might place your hand outside of their knee and say, press your knee towards my hand. And that is a tactile cue because essentially they're going to touch you once they press their knee towards your hand. But in doing so, they have learned how to align their thigh and their knee safely. Okay, so that's an example of an adjustment. Essentially, an adjustment, though, always uses light touch if you are going to use touch to correct with a verbal cue. Now, an assist, look up the dictionary, right? It means to support, to supplicate, to be an aid to. And so an assist, if we're using touch in yoga, is very different. We take a student who's comfortably aligned, safely aligned in that pose. Let's say it's child's pose or downward dog, like the examples I gave earlier. They're in that shape, they're comfortable, they look great. We're just adding a little something extra. So an assist uses stronger touch. So it's firm but receptive to listen to those tissues with attuned quality of touch. So we're applying some pressure to them that emphasizes the experience of the pose. So it's always mimicking the actions of the pose to heighten the sense of grounding, support, ease, or stretch.
Interesting. And very well said, Miss Kiara. Very well said. You had both transformative and injurious experiences with yoga. Sis. Can you share a personal story that shaped the creation of this method?
Oh, yeah. Gosh. I've had a lot of injurious experiences. I've been practicing
Injurious.
yoga for almost 25 years. So I've just been in every type of classroom imaginable, and I've had my body forced in every which way. And I've had shoulder injuries from being forced into like bound wide leg forward fold. I've been had, my arms just wrenched on in downward dog because they weren't rotating out enough. I mean, I've had a lot of painful experiences around touch, and I've even witnessed some of them with my friends or had them share them with me. So, touch can be injurious, and if it's not directly physically injurious to someone, it can be emotionally or energetically painful or hurtful, is how I describe it in the book. Like, it's not supportive, it's hurtful to you. It is a powerful tool in that way, and that it can be used for harm or it can be used for good. Because on the same like coin, on the other side of that token is when I was in the throes of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, I had such severe anxiety and panic attacks all the time that I ended up adapting this way of breathing where when I inhaled, my airway or my trachea would close. And essentially, when we're breathing, it opens to allow air in and closes slightly when it lets air out. Well, I had this maladaptive new way of breathing where I was doing the opposite. Every time I went to breathe in, my airway closed. And so I always felt like I was suffocating. And I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor to ask what was going on. I was sure I had some kind of throat illness, like there was something going on in there. I just couldn't figure out what it was because I could never breathe. And they put a scope down my throat and looked, and they're like, no, you're just breathing backwards. And I didn't get any coaching on how to fix that. And I really felt like I was at a loss because it didn't fix the problem that I couldn't breathe. And so I had been practicing yoga for, I think, about 10 years at that point, close to that. And yoga is where you learn to breathe, right? So
Yes.
I went to yoga class and was trying to learn to breathe. I'm sure I was so loud learning to breathe. And one day, my yoga teacher, who I've been practicing with for a really long time, I think she could tell that something was going on with me and my breathing. I didn't openly tell her what was going on. And she came over to me in Shavasana after this one class, and she placed her fingers on my sternum. And in yoga, we call placing your fingers somewhere to focus your awareness a niyasa. And I don't know that she knew she was doing that, but she came over and she placed her fingers on my sternum or my breastbone. And she said, just breathe into my fingers. And she stayed there. I don't know how long. It was a dark room. She'd always turn off the lights. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And then finally, somehow my airway opened and I took the first full breath that I maybe had ever taken. I don't know. It had been so long since I had taken a breath. And with that breath, it just released so much trauma. And it was a big moment for me. I literally describe it as a miracle for me because it helped me re-embody a little bit more. Disembodiment is part of post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I had. And so for me, it was embodying me a little bit more, and I was able to like breathe and reconnect to my breath. And so that was a miracle moment when it came to touch in yoga.
Miss Kiara, the book is praised for its trauma-informed approach. How do you
Ah,
incorporate sensitivity to trauma in the rubber band method?
yes. Ah, Daniel, you have good questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. um, so where do I begin with that? Touch is what literally saved my life as someone who had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's how I was able to re-embody myself and let go of a lot of trauma that was there. And so I knew for me from the very, very beginning that touch was central to body-based healing. But it's, body-based healing is often found in like somatic body work or massage. Like you don't really see touch that's trained in many other places, particularly in the context of like mind body connection and healing. And so when I became a yoga instructor, I wanted to bring touch into the yoga classroom because I knew how powerful it can be for embodiment, for regulation of the nervous system, for co-regulation with you and the teacher, right? Like you're interacting with someone when you're being touched by someone that feels safe and consensual for you. And so I started building it into my teaching from the very beginning. I actually got my very first job teaching yoga from giving hands-on yoga assists. So for me, when I ended up becoming a trauma-informed yoga instructor, I wound up with this organization, Art of Yoga Project, which is awesome. It's here in California. They're amazing. And they bring touch into their classrooms. We were teaching yoga and art to incarcerated youth, generally females. And I started to see just how much the girls transformed when touch was built into it. The transformation happened because touch creates connection. So we were able to kind of bring down walls between both of us, whether we were, as the teachers, just kind of guarded and defensive or just worried that we might be doing something wrong. And with the girls not really knowing like what our intentions were, we were able to kind of bring down those walls between us and really good work get done. And I remember just being able to witness the girls be girls. And I loved that. Like they were able to just be kids. And so many of them have had such hard lives that there really weren't, I don't know, weren't necessarily spaces for that to happen. It didn't seem like that when we first showed up. There was a lot of hardness and rigidity. Then we eventually would have moments of like playfulness and fun and laughing, etc. And so for me, touch is something that is underutilized and not delivered in trauma settings, whether that's trauma-informed yoga or whether that's in the larger kind of wellness industry as a whole targeting towards trauma. Most people, and this is a generalization, but if you see that it's not used as a tool, people just assume if you've experienced trauma, you don't want to be touched. But I find that that is absolutely not the case. And when we're not offering it as a tool, we're literally taking away agency from people because we're saying no to them. We're saying, no, you shouldn't be touched, versus saying, hey, here's this tool that you can choose, that's agency, choose to participate in or not. Either way, it's totally up to you and you're honored in whatever your decision is. And when we offer a tool that's anatomically informed, like rubber band method, that is biomechanically safe for the teacher, meaning they're safe in doing it, and the trauma-informed yoga student or the person with trauma is informed, meaning they're shown what they're going to experience. Like I might demonstrate what the downward dog front press looks like, then they're practicing agency. They're learning autonomy by saying no or yes, whatever they choose in these settings. And then when if they consent to being touched, because it's only about offering it, it's not about imposing it. When we do get to offer it and the person consents to receiving it, there's so much magic that happens. I mean, look at the research around touch. It reduces the felt sense of pain in the body. It reduces anxiety, reduces depression. It also reduces future instances of stress. And they find that people with mental health illnesses, it actually impacts them for the better more than just the average populace. And so I see rubber band method as this anatomically trauma sensitive, attuned system that can be brought into those settings and can help people living with trauma better become embodied, because it's almost like a nyasa, right? You're helping them feel by contacting their body in very safe areas that feel safe to be touched there, helping them feel into their body again. And then we're getting that whole biochemical cascade of oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. I mean, it's like a body-based happy pill. It can be, as long as it's consensual and it feels safe to the person who is receiving it, which that's where consent comes in. It's vital.
Again, Miss Kiara, very well said. As the redefining safeguards in yoga, an author and educator bridging anatomy, consent, and trauma recovery, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short-term goals are to raise awareness, to, let the yoga community know about this methodology, about training tactile awareness, quality of touch, training teachers themselves on physical and energetic boundaries, how to stay safe offering assist, but also how to respect your own boundaries so you can sustainably offer it in classrooms, every single class that you teach. I've done it for well over a decade, and it's very sustainable once you learn how to do that. But also like training the power of tactfully asking for consent. I know so many teachers who, oh, I always ask for consent, but it comes down to, but how are you doing it? Let's really look at how we're doing it. Are we doing it in a way that makes each person feel like they can privately answer and safely say no if they want to, without any peer pressure? That means it's not like publicly done for everyone in the room to see, but really getting the word out. It's like we can do touch really, really skillfully, and it can have such a huge impact when we do it skillfully. And so that's probably the short term goal. The large term goal is industry reform. I really want to elevate the standards for safe touch in yoga because yoga is a body based powerful tool for healing. I mean, the research, the science, it shows it, it proves it that our biology responds so beautifully to consensual safe touch. So why aren't we using more of it? Like we should be offering it, but only if it feels sustainable for us, and we can do it sustainably if we learn how to do it that way. But creating industry reform in a way that we start seeing portions of the Yoga Alliance teacher trainings covering touch, because it does come up whether you choose to give it or not. It's like I'm sure all teachers come to this place where they're like, oh no, I don't know how to communicate this without touching the student. How do I do that? And so creating these standards within our industry that are really, really clear in helping both the teacher and the student remain safe.
Well, good luck to your goals, Miss Kiara, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Oh, um, I would say, I mean, if you want to, I really believe in my methodology. I mean, I've been practicing yoga for almost 25 years, teaching for almost 15, offering hands-on assist that entire time. And I've worked with cadavers. I've worked with, people in a clinic as far as massage. I've worked one-on-one with yoga students and huge, huge groups. I mean, I've really, really tried and true this methodology. So my recommendation would be to get the book, try, an online training, but then practice, 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 and don't be afraid of messing up. Get friends, get colleagues, people who it's safe to make a mistake with, in order for you to really learn how to hone tactile awareness, how to listen with your hands, how to read body tissues, and then knowing how to do that while also keeping your body safe. So the biomechanics of your own body staying safe. So that's what I would recommend. If you want to become a hands-on yoga instructor, get the materials, but then practice, 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 because that really builds your confidence and also builds your how skillful this tool is for you, this tool of touch.
Well, thank you for that advice, Miss Kiara. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes. The book I would recommend is The Body Keeps the Score by Basil van der Kolk. He actually, I feature a quote from him in my book. He is an eminent doctor in the trauma world, and he talks about how touch is one of the most fundamental, basic, primal needs that we have. We know to touch children, we know how important it is for their growth, but then as soon as we become adults and we're struggling with our own stuff, I mean, we all struggle with stuff, all of a sudden touch isn't really this option for us anymore unless we go pay for a massage therapist or we're lucky enough to have a loved one who will just give us a hug, right? I mean, it's very limited as far as where we can get access to safe touch. And he even recommends any kind of type, and the research even shows that it doesn't need to be something like a massage. Actually, short, frequent touch is even better, which is perfect for hands-on yoga assist, because you could go to your yoga class and you can get touched. So, but I recommend his book because he sings the praises of how important it is for embodiment to be touched, and for someone healing from trauma to receive what feels like safe touch to them. And I think yoga teachers can provide that to people who have trauma or not. All of us need to be touched. It really is a basic need.
A basic need indeed. Miss Kiara, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101 Love Letters in fourth season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in its first season too, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Kiara, if you were to add a new chapter to a future edition, what emerging topic in yoga assisting would you address and why?
Oh, good question. I would go more in, I'd go pretty extensively into energetic and anatomical safety for the student in my book. And I definitely go into anatomical safety for the teacher as far as body mechanics and how to keep yourself safe when you're offering assists. A chapter that I would probably add is energetic safety for the teacher. I touch on it in there, but not as a focused um, piece that is identified as such. So I think in the future, I would talk about how teachers can feel energetically safe and not just safe, but energetically sustainable, touching multiple students in, say, a crowded classroom or in multiple classes per week, and going into how important boundaries are for that, and even little simple practices that they can do to kind of feel like they're bolstering their energetic boundaries.
Miss Kiara Armstrong, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. But can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Sorry, say that
Yes.
again.
Can you please invite our listeners to support all the books that you have and your advocacy or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, thank you. So hands-on yoga assists is the first. I have two more that are advanced, and so hopefully they'll be published in the future. I do have access to them on my website, which is rubberbandmethod.com. That's an online school where there's over 50 different assist techniques that a teacher can learn. And I'm going to be heading to Bali in about 2 weeks to co instruct a 200-hour teacher training, and I'll be leading a portion of that training in the rubber band method. So that way teachers from the get-go learn how to offer safe hands-on assists when they receive their certification to teach.
Yes. Well, Miss Kiara, looking forward for more success. And again, thank you so much for sharing to the world. Yes, people, let's support Miss Kiara Armstrong because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Miss Kiara, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.